Hello and welcome to another episode of LGR Play. As always, I'm your host Mark Hamer, and today I want to talk about multiplayer shooters. Specifically, I want to talk about what are, in my opinion, the best multiplayer shooters for a lapsed gamer. Now, if you haven't listened to the Lapsed Gamer Radio podcast before, we try as much as possible to highlight games that we feel are suitable for people who, for whatever reason, can't play as much as they used to, or perhaps fell out of love with games a while ago and are trying to get back into them, or perhaps are looking to introduce a new generation to video games. Therefore, any games that demand a significant amount of time investment, or have a high skill barrier, or require lots of practice to get good, or level up enough to unlock the good guns are out. There won't be any PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds in this list, or Battlefield, or Call of Duty. So with that in mind, here are, in no particular order, what I consider to be the 5 best multiplayer shooters for lapsed gamers. First up, Fortnite, the game so hot that even your mum's favourite rapper Drake likes to stream it. Fortnite is everywhere at the moment. It's forced its way into popular culture in a way that is genuinely surreal, but the game has been around for a while now in a different form. See, Fortnite is actually 2 games. The original version of Fortnite is still in development technically, and went into paid early access in summer 2017, with an expected release date sometime in 2018. It is an interesting melding of a loot shooter, a survival game, and a resource gathering construction game that developers themselves described as a cross between Minecraft and Left 4 Dead. The basic loop of missions involve jumping into a map with up to 3 other players, exploring and gathering materials, then activating an extraction point and constructing defences to hold off waves of zombies until the mission ends. There is a level of persistence with unused materials you have gathered and blueprints you find being used to create new weapons and to build elaborate defences for your home base, which expands over time. But because the game is purely cooperative, there is no worry about becoming out-leveled or out-equipped by other players. Fortnite is available on PS4, Xbox One, PC and Mac through paid early access currently, but it is set to be released as a free-to-play title some point in 2018. Fortnite Battle Royale, on the other hand, was developed as an experiment in the wake of the popularity of PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds by the Unreal team at Epic Games to see if they could make a Battle Royale style game out of the tools they had in Fortnite, and apparently they could, to the point that it has long since eclipsed the game that it was built on. Fortnite Battle Royale was originally accused of being a rip-off of PUBG, but it distinguishes itself in a number of key areas. The map is smaller, the matches are much shorter, usually less than half the length of a PlayerUnknown's Battleground match, and gameplay is much more frantic, and the ability to be able to construct defences on the fly adds a whole new dimension to the genre. Fortnite Battle Royale is free to play on PS4, Xbox One, PC, Mac, iOS and Android, and it's only a matter of time before it turns up on the Nintendo Switch. It's fast, it's fun, it's easy to play, and while it's not the best shooter in terms of actual shooting mechanics, it's the perfect game for lapsed gamers to get into the Battle Royale genre. Next up, Plants vs Zombies Garden Warfare 2. When EA announced back at E3 2013 that they were making a multiplayer shooter based on PopCap's tower defense game Plants vs Zombies, most people thought it was a terrible idea and would make a terrible game. Turns out it was really good, and the sequel's even better. Garden Warfare 2 is a class-based third-person shooter where each character type has a clearly defined role, and like the Battlefield games it is clearly based on, team play is more important than outright skill at shooting. You've got basic infantry types, medics who don't do much damage but can keep the damage dealers alive, specialist classes who can snipe from a distance or inflict status ailments, and heavy-hitting tank characters. All the classes complement each other, and you can change classes after dying if your team composition needs changing. But more importantly for people like me who aren't the greatest at the actual shooting aspect of shooters, you can help your team enormously without ever firing a shot by playing a support role and keeping those who are good at shooting alive. Garden Warfare 2 is available on PS4, Xbox One and PC, and is frequently on sale, and it's perfect for a lapsed gamer who likes the idea of Battlefield but doesn't want to deal with 60 player matches that can last upwards of 40 minutes. Next up, Star Wars Battlefront 2. Star Wars Battlefront 2? Well, it might be an odd choice seeing as it is the game people love to hate, and for good reason, but hear me out here. EA have caused a number of controversies and created a lot of bad PR for themselves with their two recent Battlefront games. The first was an empty shell at launch, and only felt like a full game if you shelled up for the ridiculously expensive season pass, whereas the sequel made the welcome change of releasing with an actual single player campaign and a good number of maps and modes, plus the promise that all DLC would be free. Then they screwed it all up by tying progression to loot boxes in a move that blew up in their faces and got actual governments looking into the practice of loot boxes in games, because, let's be real, it's gambling and children can buy these games and be encouraged to gamble because EA and their ilk are scumbags. This move caused so much outrage that EA actually removed the ability to pay for loot boxes with real money before the game even launched, and a recent patch to the game removed them from the game completely, except for unlocking cosmetic items, which, while still being a scumbag move, is less egregious. And this is a good thing, because when you move past all the nonsense and greedy business decisions, Battlefront 2 is a really good casual shooter that is the closest thing a Star Wars fan will get to stepping into that universe. Abilities are simple and clearly defined, aiming down sights doesn't improve your accuracy, so you don't even have to worry about that, and there are a variety of different game modes to enjoy. The campaign is still bad, and the game has some balancing issues, but it's regularly available for cheap on PS4, Xbox One and PC, so if you're a Star Wars fan looking for a casual shooter to jump into, then you could do a lot worse than Battlefront 2. Next up, Overwatch. Anyone who has listened to the Lapsed Game Radio podcast for any length of time will be aware of how much I adore Overwatch. Blizzard completely knocked it out of the park with their first ever multiplayer shooter. And although it rightly has a reputation of being fiercely competitive amongst the elite MLG pro players, if you stay away from the ranked modes and stick to quick play in the various arcade modes, you can have an absolute blast either alone or with a group of friends. Overwatch is, aside from the occasional special arcade mode, an objective-based shooter, which might put casual or lapsed players off because of the emphasis that usually plays on coordinated team play. And while this can be an advantage and a necessity in ranked play, it's not a requirement to have fun and be a useful member of your team. You see, Overwatch is what's known as a hero shooter, in that there's a roster of characters to choose from, much like there is in a MOBA or a fighting game. And these characters have clearly defined roles that lend themselves to playing in particular ways. Some of these characters, controversially in a shooter I know, don't even require you to be good at aiming because they either don't have a gun or their gun locks onto enemy players automatically. For example, there's Winston, the genius scientist talking gorilla, who can leap into and out of skirmishes, dropping a shield to protect him and his teammates and unleashing electric death from his Tesla cannon. Or maybe you'd prefer to play as the Swiss medic Mercy, who can fly to any of her teammates within range and emit a healing beam or a damage buff from her staff and raise recently killed teammates from the dead. Or, if you're like me, you can spend a lot of time playing as the hammer-wielding walking shield that is Reinhardt, aka the most metal character in the game. There are currently 27 characters in the game who fall into one of 4 categories: attack, defense, tank and healer, and each one plays completely differently to the others, and each character is incredibly well balanced to make sure none are overpowered. Except Brigitte, she is an absolute boss, and if Blizzard nerf her I will cry. The point I'm making is there is a character to suit all playstyles and all skill levels, and that coupled with the fast matchmaking and short matches makes you an ideal multiplayer shooter for a lapsed gamer who just wants to jump in for a bit of fun. Overwatch is available on PS4, Xbox One and PC, and again is regularly available on sale.
Enemy in my sights.
Finally, Splatoon 2. Now, Splatoon 2 is not only, in my opinion, the best shooter for a lapsed gamer, I think it is the best multiplayer shooter out there, full stop, and proof that Nintendo EAD are still the best at taking a genre and completely reinventing it. As with the original Splatoon on the Wii U, the core gameplay of Splatoon 2 revolves around two teams vying to cover a map with more of their ink than the opposing team. Being able to pull the left trigger and transform into a squid to swiftly swim through your team's ink makes locomotion a joy, and with the exception of the sniper rifle type weapons, none of the various weapons are designed for pinpoint accuracy or twitch reactions, which makes the game feel more welcoming than almost any other shooter I've ever played. Various weapons play in totally different styles, be it an assault rifle style ink gun, an ink brush, or an ink roller, or just a bucket that slings ink around, and it's a good selection of interesting and fun special abilities. If you want to take a break from the player versus player modes, then there is the option to play Salmon Run, which is basically a 4-player cooperative horde mode where you face off against waves of angry salmonids to earn special rewards and XP boosts to use in the regular multiplayer. And of course there are the Splatfests. Once a month, Splatoon 2 seeks to answer the burning questions in life by giving the player base an option of two choices, then having those two teams battle it out over a weekend to see who is right. For those 24 hours, the game turns into a festival with new maps available and a party atmosphere to the whole proceedings. I'd say this is a good way to bring players back to the game, but the global appeal of this game, especially in Japan and parts of continental Europe, means that you'll never struggle to find the game at any time of day or night. If you have a Nintendo Switch, you absolutely owe it to yourself to get this game. It is incredible. So there you have it. Those are my picks for the best multiplayer shooters for lapsed gamers. Agree? Disagree? Got any better suggestions? Then do please leave a comment below, and remember to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Remember as well to check out the Lapsed Gamer Radio podcast if you don't already. It can be found on Podbean and iTunes, and you can also find us on Twitter at LapsedGamer, and you can visit our blog at lapsedgamer.com. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next episode of LGR Play.